Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Executive Insights podcast, where we explore how fractional executives and advisory leaders are helping companies grow with clarity, especially when high stakes and the timeline is short. I'm your host, Dallion Broomfield, and today I'm joined with John DuHadway, the founder and fractional CFO at DoHadway LLC. They are an on demand leadership team providing fractional C suite support for early stage and growth ventures. John, welcome to the show.
Morning, Dallin. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, to kick us off, John, what's something that you've changed your mind about in business over the last few years?
Um, Over the last few years, I guess, you know, when you're starting out, you start to think that you have things figured out, and you start to think that things won't change. And I think the thing that I've learned over the years is how we can have what we think is solid ground change overnight. Examples would be COVID. Who would have ever thought we would have had a country shut down overnight, or that people would be prevented from coming into stores and things like that. Just was never anybody's playbook. It happened. So
Right.
I think that's the thing that I would say I kind of learned over the past few years.
Yeah, it's like don't get comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. If you think
Well,
if you think it won't happen, if you think it can't happen, it will happen. It's just a
yeah,
matter of when.
yeah. Well, tell us about your background and your journey that led you up to founding Do Hadway LLC.
Okay. Give you the. I'll try to give you the Cliff Note version here. Uh, I graduated and I wasn't really sure where I was going to go, other than I was an accounting grad and I wanted to be a CPA. And I was fortunate enough to have an opportunity to join Deloitte in the Big Four, passed my CPA exam, and really rose through the ranks within Deloitte. Ran a practice within Deloitte nationwide. I was on the East Coast, and then had an opportunity to move to the West Coast to join a very entrepreneurial founder who had sold his company. He had sold it to DLJ Merchant Banking and was in process of trying to buy it back. And long story that I'll keep short is nobody was really believing in what he could do. I listened to his strategy, I listened to his vision, and I bought into it. And so it was a long courting process, but I moved out west, joined him. We sold that company about 18 months later at a very good return. And then we sold it again. And then I was basically taken behind the woodshed and shot because it was bought by a bank, and they don't like to have external CFOs. And we saw that coming. And so I then joined a tech company, I was the first non-founder that was at the executive level. We then sold that, did a Series B, and then sold that to a strategic buyer. And timing was very apropos because at the same time, the former CEO of my other company called and said, "Hey, non-compete's over. You want to put the band back together?" So co-founded another company with him, selling that other company, the tech company, and then moved to the LA area and did that the same thing. We bought a company, we built it up, sold that in about a year, sold it to Merrill Lynch, and then we had the liquidity crisis, and Merrill Lynch pulled the plug, and Merrill Lynch was turning the lights out. So that was about 15 years ago, because that's when I started DoHadway LLC. It was started out as just a holding company holding my own private investments. Started getting calls from friends and friends of friends asking if I could help, and it turned into a kind of a boutique advisory firm. I operate now under a DBA, which is called Strategic CFO Solutions, but I have both operating companies running at the current time. And so now I look to help early stage companies grow, scale, and hopefully exit and grow into a bigger company.
Yeah, that's brilliant, man. And congratulations. Such a huge career. And I do want to get into the exit readiness topics, but
Sure.
you've built and scaled and exited three companies with valuations ranging from 266 million to 500 million. What did those experiences teach you about how value is really created or lost?
Sure. Actually had four exits, but one was a double exit. Um, I think when I first kind of started, I didn't realize some of the intangibles that went into the valuation. So I was really focused on the typical valuation metrics. And what I mean by that is if you have two companies with the same amount of earnings, same projections, they can have different values. And a lot of that comes down to one of the things that I really learned a big value of is culture. I think culture of a company is not something that shows up on your balance sheet or in your income statement, but it has a huge value to a company. And uh, I saw that firsthand in my first exit. We had at the time stock options were, I'm dating myself here, but this is back in the .com, and if you didn't have stock options, it was very hard to compete. We took that to having every employee having stock options, and part of it was we wanted them to have ownership. And I can tell you, coming straight from Deloitte, I at first thought that that was crazy. That we're, quote unquote, wasting, you know, value. But I saw that what happened was we created an army of people that would just run through the wall for anything that we wanted them to do, and that ended up creating a lot of value on the back end. And I can go through other examples, but I think that would probably be the top of my list is culture.
Yeah, yeah. I totally agree with that. That does really mean everything. That the companies that I have been around that have that culture, and um, they're just way more driven, right? The employees are happier. They want to comply, and they want to just do anything they can to help the business grow.
Sure, sure.
You've mentioned that most businesses don't fail because of bad ideas. They fail because of poor financial strategy and lack of preparation. What does lack of preparation look like in the real world?
Well, I can give you some real examples. You know, I'll give you two extremes. Get called by a founder 3, 4 years before they're actually contemplating raising money and doing an exit. Get involved, help them start putting corporate governance matters in place, getting them into the discipline of doing budgets, getting them into the discipline of having an audit or being prepared for an audit, um, preparing a data room, getting all the due diligence files prepared, uh, having really solid, credible projections. That type of client tends to be the client that ends up selling and selling at a premium. Um, the other end of the spectrum is where I get a call and it's at the 11th hour. The company's running out of money. They realize they have to raise capital. They've never had an audit. They don't know what a budget is. They've not prepared. They think that it's like selling a car that somebody's going to come by and write them a check and everything goes. Um, that one typically, if it does sell, it's going to go at a very low price and probably with a lot of contingencies and a lot of holdbacks and things of that nature. So I give you those two ends of the spectrum. I think the ones that can appreciate that things take time and you need to have your ducks in a row, so to speak. Those are the ones that tend to extract a better value and have a faster execution.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. What do you think most people outside of fractional executives misunderstand or underestimate about what you actually do?
Well, I do think there's a lot of confusion in the marketplace. There's no license to be a fractional CFO, and I've encountered many people in the competitive world where just a different background. I can give you examples. I've run into a person who's a couple years out of college and calling themselves a fractional CFO. I've run into people who were enrolled agents with the IRS calling themselves a fractional CFO. ran into CPA firms that are, selling fractional CFO services. I'm not begrudging them. I'm just saying that you have to really understand what they are. In those cases, they were never a CFO. I'm a CPA. I was a CFO. I've been an investor. I've been at every seat of the table, and that perspective is, of value. I think sometimes in the outside world, they don't necessarily understand exactly what a fractional CFO is. I think, it isn't a cure-all, meaning, just because you hire a fractional CFO doesn't mean that you check the box and you move on. I think a lot of times it's about how you engage them and what you're engaging them for. And I think a lot of times people think of a fractional CFO of when they have messy books or they've got no accounting records. As a matter of policy and principle, I don't engage with clients that don't have an accountant. I will help them, but I don't want to step into it if they don't have somebody who's actually going to do the accounting. I respect the lane of the person who's doing the accounting. They have a job to do. A lot of times they are retroactively focused. They're looking in the rearview mirror. They're going through making sure everything's accounted for. There's good controls, things of that nature. Godspeed. That's great. That's something that's needed. I am in the car looking through the windshield, looking at where we're going. What's the plan? What's the strategy to achieve that? What are the obstacles? What are the challenges? And a lot of times that is beyond accounting. That can get into marketing matters. That can get into resource matters. I get a lot of times involved in transactional matters as far as legal and things of that nature. So again, I think trying to understand what your challenges are and having the right person for that. There's no one, I would argue there's usually no one person that's going to do it all. Sometimes there's a firm that might have different people in those slots. But again, there's different aspects. If you look at it full circle, there's different aspects that need different people along that line, that journey.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, the accounting and CFO, they got to work hand in hand, for sure.
That's for sure.
So if we
I can't do my job. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah,
I can't do my job if I don't have reliable information, and
yeah,
that's usually the most important.
yeah, we hear it all the time. We really do. So with that in mind, if we were having this conversation 5 years from now, what do you think would look completely different about how founders prepare for capital or an exit, and what might look exactly the same?
Well, great question. I think the matter at hand right now is AI. Hearing a lot about it. I'm heavily involved in it. I've got a client that's really involved in it and on the bleeding edge. I do think a lot of procedural process type things are going to become automated. AI is certainly here, knocking on the doorstep, if not knocking down the door, and many manual processes and different. I'll call them clerical level, as well as even some higher level accounting matters are going to get handled by AI. I think the challenge is going to be how that gets interpreted. So yes, that's going to be a challenge for some people who don't have higher skills, but I think the higher skilled person is going to become actually more valuable because how do you get that experience? You can't get that experience unless you've gone through it. Meaning, I started out, I've done debits and credits, I've done audits, I've done all those things. And now if it's just being done for you by AI, how do you get that experience? And if you don't have that experience, how do you know if there's a problem? And so I know some of my contemporaries are going to argue that, AI will solve it. I'm like, well, it has to be trained. And I've got live examples where I'm going through with a client that has implemented AI fairly aggressively. And things like when you get into complex accounting, what are the questions that have to be asked to get to the issues to judge how that accounting should be handled. Um, AI isn't asking those questions. Now, once they get my intel, they're able to then ask AI to go through, for example, client we were working on is on the revenue recognition. So I had them go through, explain to them what I want to understand, and they were able to use AI to go through all their contracts to say, here's what the contracts say as far as, when services, what are the services, when are the services delivered, what are the obligations and things of that, so that I can ask some intelligent questions that get us to the accounting answer result that they want. So again, that's a long answer to your very simple question, but I think it's a very topical one. I do think a lot of the processes are going to get minimized, and I think the thought process is going to be still there.
Yeah, no, that was good. I'm glad you went into that. Well, tell me about DuHadway LLC. What do you do and who do you do it for?
So I primarily do fractional CFO services for early stage companies, middle market companies. They're usually in the $10 to $50 million range. I'm fairly agnostic to industry, have a lot of depth in the financial services, technology, and B2B services. We help first stabilize and then help grow the company. So we'll come in and help shore up weaknesses, and then build a platform that we can then help them grow that company from. We look with an eye towards an exit, but we don't use an exit as the goal. I always encounter entrepreneurs who want to have the goal be, I'm going to be an IPO. Okay, great. Well, to me, that's a result. It's not a goal. A goal to me is, let's build the best damn company you can. What's the best value you can provide? Those things will come. If you're building good value, the exit will come. Exits will find good companies, but bad companies have a hard time finding exits. So I concentrate on building value.
Right. And then so it's a lot of planning to get people ready, like one to get to their goal, right, with the client that you're
Mm-hmm.
working with. But you're also always looking to exit because you got to have something at the end.
I think being prepared for it, because you never know when it'll come. So uh, I go in with the mind of, let's have a data room as an example. Well, why do we need a data room for? Well, you're going to need it when you do an exit. Well, we don't know if we're going to have an exit. Okay, well, but it's a good discipline to have, because if we're doing it all the time, it's really easy if tomorrow you get a call to flip the switch on. It's a lot harder to start out from scratch. So getting into these habits of having these types of things at the ready, so that when the moment arises, you're able to take advantage and be opportunistic of a situation versus being reactive. That would be kind of how I would approach it. I don't look at it as the goal, but I am ready for it when it happens.
Well, you position the firm as an on-demand leadership team. What does that look like in practice when you start first engaging with a new client?
Sure, great question. So usually when I enter, most entrepreneurs, founders typically aren't coming from the corporate world. They don't understand what we call the C-suite and the different aspects of that. And as they grow and as they raise capital, capital tends to want to have more governance. Capital tends to want to have more leadership, so it's diversified. So I help educate them first of all, and then help them put those in place. And that could be myself. That could be helping them with bringing in others, but helping them build out their team to be able to accomplish those goals. I call it on demand because what we do is I sit down with clients at the onset and really develop a plan to say, okay, what's your appetite? I've had clients that want to drink by the fire hose and are like, give it to me all. So we'll go heavy. I've had others where they're not so sure and they want to test out. Okay, well, let's do a light plan and get started. And as you presumably see the value of that, you'll then crank up the amount that you want. And so that's what we do when I call it on demand. It's at the ready, and we can increase as your demand increases, and that enables you to get the power and the knowledge that you need, but on a fractional basis.
Great. So other than, well, because we went through your experience and your exits. Can you share with me a real example of how you used your team to get a meaningful result for a client, whether it was securing capital, or getting exit ready?
Sure. Let's see. Which one will I give you? So securing capital is probably one that the exits are always the fun ones, but a lot of times it's just living from day to day and getting through, uh, you know, getting past a challenge to get to the promised land. So I find that a lot of times it's the financing aspect that is most common. And had a client that had they had a CFO. They were trying, this is in the financial services business, and they were trying to obtain a line of credit, a warehouse line of credit. So this is a line that finances the loans as they originate them. And they were having a very hard time. I knew the CEO, and he was kind of asking me, like, how can this be? I offered to help out, and so he engaged me, and I came in and I sat through a couple of the calls with the prospective creditor who was in process of underwriting. And I get on the call, and lo and behold, I know the underwriter just from being in the business. And at the same time, I'm observing what the CFO is doing. And so after the call, I get into a meeting and explain to the CEO that the problem was the CFO was coming out very granular. He gave him a 4-page income statement. And so you end up having, the underwriter diving into things like, well, why did the paper clips go up so much? And what happened with it? Like, it's almost, they can't help themselves because they see these, deviations. Yet when you roll it up, there was very little, if any, change. And so I went back, I explained it to him. We talked to the CFO. I stepped in as leading it, and basically we had a 5-line income statement. This was comparing income statement to balance sheet. Had the dialogue with the underwriter, explained to them, what were the changes from one period to another, how it was changing from budget to the actual, and approval was done like within that week. And it was a pretty significant warehouse line. And again, you asked for a good example. That's an example where I stepped in. I had the credibility, I had the relationship previously, and just knowing and putting myself in the underwriter's shoes as to what they're looking for, I was able to take. It wasn't changing the actual results; it was just changing the way it was being presented so that it was, digestible by the underwriter.
Yeah, that's huge for the business owner because you're willing to like kind of go to bat and step in and make sure that those types of things get done. Share with us what was the amount and how long did it take
That
you to get it?
that was if I remember right, that was a $50 million warehouse line, and it took me all in from the time I started. It was probably about a month.
That's great. That's amazing. So with that, what's been one of your proudest moments so far
Professionally,
professionally?
um, I think one of my proudest moments really goes back to when I left Deloitte. I was very much a type A white suit, white starch shirt, tie, and suit every day. Wore the uniform, planned on being there forever, and I took a risk, and nobody else was willing to take it, and took this opportunity that I had. It was in the Bay Area, so I had to move cross country. I would say that's probably my proudest because at the time it was a big risk and it turned out and it paid off very handsomely for me. Uh, Had a lot of fun, met a lot of great people, created a lot of great relationships, and it happened at warp speed compared to what would have happened had I stayed at Deloitte. So that was probably a big turning point in my life. I learned the other side of the business, which was the entrepreneurial side. I learned, a lot of things about what I didn't know, which was we talked about culture, for example. I just never really put a value on that. And being on the other side, I was able to really see how to create a company, how to create value. Certainly, I understood the accounting side and the finance side and the presentation and all that, but how to build it from the inside out was really something I learned there, and I'm really proud of. So,
Yeah, so taking that leap and doing that, you say it's the proudest moment. Would you also say it may have been one of the most uncomfortable moments as well?
well, you know, I'm a hockey coach, and we always tell people to get better, you got to be uncomfortable.
Right.
And if you're comfortable, you're not pushing yourself, you're not moving and changing. So I believe that they kind of go hand in hand. So yes, I was definitely uncomfortable.
Yeah, great. Well, what's next? How do you see DoHadway evolving over the next few years?
Well, I do see AI as being a big issue, and I shouldn't say issue, but it's a challenge, and I'm all in. I do think it's here to stay. So I've got clients that are embarking on it. We're helping them, and so um, I think that that's how we're going to end up evolving and changing. I'm also pretty senior, so I try to stay in touch with you know changes and innovations, which is usually not something people think of from the senior level folks. But I'm challenging myself to learn, and I've got some great clients, I got some great colleagues, and I really think that's going to drive a lot of our change. And so I do think we're going to be innovating here, and we love business, the world of business. We love the world of entrepreneurship. Um, as much as we love it, we have to roll with changes that happen, systemically through society. And I do think AI is going to be one of the big ones.
Right. Yeah, totally agree. Well, what about growth? What does growth look like for you in these next 6 to 12 months?
Well, I'm a bit unique with my firm. My firm is intentionally led and run by myself. I don't look at this as something that I want to build to be a company that I sell. Um, it's become a lifestyle, and what I mean by that is when I was at Deloitte, I was having clients like I do now, but they were clients that were assigned to me, and then I'd move on to another client, and somebody else would get assigned to the prior client that I had. This is true relationships. I've got clients that are have become, and some were friends beforehand, but have become friends, and so it's more personal now. So my growth is probably going to be more tempered than a lot of other people. I think this year is going to be we had a really good year last year. This year, I'm probably looking at about a 20 to 30% growth. But, at any point in time, I could say enough's enough. I've got a book load. I'm not going to sacrifice an existing client for a new client. So we are a bit selective in taking on clients. But I guess to answer your question, I'm seeing about a 20 to 30% growth this coming year.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Which growth channels are currently working best for you right now?
Well, um, we've like I mentioned, we're relatively agnostic on the sector space. Um, I would say most of what I've seen in the past, let's say 6 months, been doing a lot more on the capital raise side. Companies that are either already engaging or about to engage and raise capital. So I have a couple of those that are really, warming up and getting hot. And so that's where a lot of my time and a lot of my revenue has been migrating from.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
So they are, most, I would say a majority of them are in Series A stage. So they had capital, they're growing, they're expanding, and the timing right now is that they are going to be they're going to be doing the Series A here. One's right in it right now, and others probably within the next 6 months. And so we're actively involved in those at the moment, and that's where a bulk of my time and a bulk of my revenue is coming from. I've got others that are, I don't want to say on autopilot, but they're more in a maintain mode. They don't take as much of my capacity, but they're also not the bigger part of my revenue currently. Is that
Yeah.
what your question was?
Yeah, yeah. So out of curiosity, because I've asked this with like accountants before, but never somebody that works with specifically or offers the C-suite support. So looking at like an LTV, long time value, how long do you think a customer typically stays with you? Is it something kind of like, oh, we need him for a year to get us to XYZ, and then once we get to this point, we can, we're ready, we can let him go and we're ready to move forward? Or is it something more of like this is always a reoccurring thing?
Great question, and we do track our longevity and our duration with our clients. My clients are very long relative to what I've seen in the marketplace. But the relationship changes. A lot of times it starts out as one type of relationship and then ends up in another. And what I'll give you an example of is client that didn't have a CFO come in and we start doing fractional CFO work, helping them. And then as they grow, I always tell them I'm intentionally working myself out of a job. And so they get to a point where they could not only benefit from, but it would be more feasible for them to have a full-time CFO. We transitioned to helping them. We don't do the recruiting, but we will help them with, we'll help them going through the interviews, give them feedback. We'll also do orientation and transition matters with the CFO. And in some of those cases, and one in particular that I have currently, we kind of move over to being a coach. So we've migrated from being the fractional CFO to being a coach for the CEO. And in that case, the CEO didn't, I had a great relationship as a CFO with this person, and they trusted me. I've become a trusted advisor. That term I don't use a lot because I think it's overused. But I truly became the trusted advisor where I get the first call, not the attorney, not somebody else. And he never has had another CFO working for him. So that relationship, that engagement that transitioned to me being a coach for the CEO, helping him understand how to oversee a CFO, how to build out the rest of his C-suite team, because he then is looking to get a COO, and how does he manage them? And so so I guess that's a long answer to your question. I think my engagements tend to be long, but they migrate over time.
Yeah, there is possibilities that, or you mentioned relationships change because, and the reason why is because they were struggling with this type of problem at first, and once this hurdle, was overcome, now we have another something else to overcome, and so that's where that dynamic and the strategy, everything changes to get to the next stages.
Yeah, and I think, out of the boat, if at the start, if I came in for this one client, for example, and said I'm going to be a CEO coach for you, he probably would have laughed at me. But gaining the trust, gaining the credibility, from him over the time that we worked together, he started to respect and understand, and I've got a lot of integrity, and so he started to really appreciate that. And now, I'm still the first call that he calls, but he's got other people to rely on. But he's asking me, is this guy doing the right thing? Is this what he should be doing? So and that becomes a challenge too, because you don't want the CFO thinking that I'm the enemy, right? I'm not the internal mole. I'm there to help, and so sometimes I'll go in and have a cup of coffee and sit down and chat with the CFO and see what's going on. And look, my job, I'm like I always tell them, I'm not there to take their job. I actually helped hire them. I'm just there to help the CEO and help the company in any way I can. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what's been the toughest part of getting in front of your ideal fit clients?
Well, you've hit on it a little bit through this conversation. You know, people don't necessarily understand what a fractional CFO does. They also don't necessarily understand the value that it can bring. So, I'll get in front of people sometimes and I can immediately tell it's not going to be a fit, just because they become, very price sensitive. They're looking at, if their first question is um, about the price, without understanding what the value is, that's not what I want. I'm looking for people who are looking at value creation, and so I can pretty quickly understand if it's not going to be a good fit. And for them, I try to help make introductions. I've got a lot of fractional CFOs that are colleagues of mine that I refer out to and things like that nature. Trying to help everybody get a home, trying to help everybody find the resources they need. But the right fit for me, it starts at the top. It's I'm as much as I'm getting um, checked out, if you will, by the potential client. I'm doing my own due diligence and trying to understand who they are, what their needs are, how realistic are they, how credible are they, all those kinds of things. And so we're both kind of it's my former CFO or CEO used to say to me, he said it's the dog butt sniffing situation. Each has to check out each other to figure out if they're okay. We go through that, but at the end of the day, it's a relationship, and I'm looking for the right client. And so I think one of the problems is making sure that they really understand what they're getting into. And I spend time talking them through that at the onset to make sure that, you say you want a fractional CFO, what's your expectations of what they're going to do? Well, this kind of sounds like you really need a controller, or you're looking for somebody who's going to do your books. That's not a fractional CFO. And if fractional CFOs are leading you that way, then they're probably not the ones you want to talk to. I can get you in touch with a couple of people that I think would be a really good controller for you, and you might want to talk to them. That's the kind of situation I would run into.
Yeah. I could imagine, that you would, if they don't understand what it is, then you just kind of get in this bucket of like, it's just too narrow and, oh, this guy's just a finance guy, because they don't understand what you can really do for them with that type of service.
Yeah, I think it's always about expectations, right? Like making sure that they understand, that I understand what their expectations are, but also that they understand what's expected, and that we're, unified in that. If you expect me to go right and I'm expecting you to want me to go left, we're never going to be aligned, and that's not going to be a good situation for either of us. And so I want to make it again, a win is not just getting a billable client. A win is helping a client be successful, and that revenue will come. That's secondary.
Yeah. So are these conversations typically having locally, or are they through LinkedIn, email?
Most of my connections end up through referrals. I get a lot of referrals through M&A counsel. I get referrals from wealth management, from CPA firms, where I'll just get an email saying, "Hey, you should talk to John. John, meet so and so." I'll hop on a call, or I'll meet them if they're local. I'll meet them. But I've got clients. I actually have clients worldwide, but most are here on the West Coast. I do have them throughout the country. Um, and then I chat it through. So I'm able to do. I'm an old school guy, so I like being in person, but the world's changed, and so I'll follow the client's lead, what they want. But ideally, as I get engaged, I like to be on site, maybe not every day, but um, you know, again, it depends on the business. I just feel like there's a sixth sense that sixth, not sick, but a sixth sense of being on premise to see what's going on, to get a feel. Like we talked about culture. It's really, 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 really hard to get a sense of culture if you're not actually there, chatting with the employees and getting a sense of what they're all about. You're on a Zoom call, it's really hard to figure that out.
Yeah, yep. You got to get in and get personal for sure. Well, John, you've had an incredible journey so far. Hypothetically, if you had a magic wand to fix one thing in the business right now that's either holding you back or slowing you down, what would that be?
Hmm. Holding me back or slowing me down? You know, I am here in California. California is a tough place to be an employer. I've intentionally uh, stayed away from hiring employees. I've been there. I've done that. There's a whole host of things that come along with having employees. I'm not saying companies shouldn't have employees. I'm just saying for me, at my time in my life, that's a choice that I've made. Um, But if I had a magic wand and could have employees without having all that, that's probably what I would do because that would give me lift. And that's kind of what AI is going to be doing. So I'm actively using it. But if I could do it with employees, I would do it with employees.
Right, right. So, for fractional executives listening, what advice would you give them about stepping into strategy, capital ready raising, or exit readiness?
For other fractionals, um, I think, I'm a collaborative person by nature. And I think when you get into this, uh, I run into a lot of people with egos and they want to do it all. I would encourage people to, have a network. Um, don't be afraid of collaborating. Um, in my mind, I want to have what's best for the client, and what's best for the client could be what's not best for me. And so I want to make sure that the client has the best M&A counsel. I want to make sure that they have the best CPA firm to help them out. I want to help them in that manner. And what I mean by that is for fractionals is a lot of times they will try to get involved in everything. And so I could probably do what a first year, you know, law person associate would do as far as drafting documents. I just have done them so often and have been involved. Would they be good? Maybe not, but I could do that. Would I? Not a chance. I'll help out with the deal terms and things of that nature, but I'll say, hey, I'm going to be in my lane. I'm going to help out. I'm happy to be the person who conveys it to the M&A team and say, hey, counsel, here's what we're looking at. This is the terms that we want to have and have them go off. And a lot of times that's what happens. I get put in essentially like a quarterback position where I've got all these people. Um, my encouragement for other fractionals would be to bring in others. There's power in having multiple people involved and not to be fearful of it.
Yeah, I love you said stay in your own lane, and that clicked with me. I That's something I need to do sometimes, right? Because you'll have these clients where you like them so much and you're so invested into it, like you will step out of your comfort zone and try to do things and that are out of your realm, right? And it can be stressful. So stay in your lane and have other people that are experienced in that area do those types of jobs. That's good.
Yep.
What's up,
Yep.
John? I appreciate it. So, where can people learn about DoHadway LLC and get in touch with you?
We have a website, which is www.DoHadway LLC, DuHadway LLC.com. For my fractional work, the best would be to go to www.stratcfos.com. So it's stratcfos.com. Phone would be the best would be to call me at 323-991-8801. And they can follow me on LinkedIn. It's John DuHadway, all one word.
Great. John, this was a great conversation and definitely by far the most interesting one I've had so far about the exit strategy. I love your experience and the conversation about that. So thank you for sharing that. If you're listening and you want more conversations like this, please subscribe to the Executive Insight podcast. John, thank you so much.
Dallion, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I'm trying to stop it here. It's kind of frozen on me. Few seconds here, John. I'm gonna start exiting out all these windows I got. Maybe that'll help.
You're like me.
Yeah, I've got four email or Google Chrome windows up, and yeah, I'm getting after it.
I keep them open because I'm like, I'm going to go back to them and I can't find a dang thing. So,
Yeah, we'll give it a couple seconds, see if I can get it. But it may, there's another way we can do it. I'll just have to send you a link it to your email and then click that link and it'll let you download and bring it back. It's 70% right now, so it is trying to catch up.
okay.
Before we get off though, John, there's something that you mentioned about you not wanting employees, but that's something that you know that AI is going to start taking over with. And that's something that we do here. We build out AI agents to basically come in and be like a virtual assistant for you. I don't know if it's a fit right now, but would you be interested in booking another discovery call with me? And that way we can kind of dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah, I would. Total candor here. I think for me, it would probably be better to have it so that I can refer you to clients. For me, I've got one client that is heavily involved, and they've actually are doing all my tech support, and so I'm actually kind of integrated with them in that respect. But yeah, they've got we call them digital twins. We got a digital twin for everybody, and tracking what everybody does, and using that to help educate and get the AI going.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. Yeah, I'd love to hear more about it.
Okay. So would do you want to do a discovery call or that's something that since you have the digital twins, you're not fully interested in that?
Well, I'd like to see ways I can get you into some clients. So if that's doing an exploration, I'm into it. Where are you based again?
We're out of
Located?
Oklahoma City.
I'm sorry, Oklahoma City?
Oklahoma
Yeah.
City, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, okay. Um, yeah, the reason I was asking is just if I had anything local there. But I'm happy to get you connected with a couple that I'm working with to see if there's a way to work with them. I've got one in Thailand, of all places.
Really?
He's a manufacturer, and he's we were just having a call actually before this. He's looking at he's got accounting records that he's not too confident in because he's had various people working in, and I just think it's something that could get really automated. But he's looking for doers because he's had a lot of people coming in and telling him what to do, but nobody actually doing it for him. So that might be, if it's something you can help him there.
I would love
Um,
to look into that opportunity.
okay. Let me see if I can put that together.
Okay. And then also, since you mentioned referrals, so I always like to ask at the end if you know anybody else that you think would be a good fit for our show, where we could interview them and do a podcast with them as well.
Sure. So are you looking for fractionals? You looking
Yeah.
for,
We
yeah,
will fractional executives, mainly CFOs, but I'm not against CMOs or COOs, but the fractional executives is our niche.
yeah, I'll shoot you. I got a few. I'll give you
Okay.
a couple
Awesome.
referrals.
Awesome. Sounds good, man. Well, I appreciate it so much. I think we are going to go ahead and just end this.
Okay.
And I'll email you the link because it's not really letting me do anything over here. It's actually saying my internet is unstable.
Uh, all right. So I'll email you some fractional execs and I'll check with my client and see if I can get an intro to you on that.
Okay. Perfect, John.
All
I
right, Dallin.
appreciate
Well, I
it, sir.
appreciate it.
Okay, well, stand by. I'll
So,
send you an email link and just click on it and let it download, and then the podcast will be downloaded into our studio.
okay.
Okay.
Let me
All
look.
right, bud.
I'll look.
Thank you. Take care,
Thanks.
John.